Kia ora guys, my name is Max and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Though we're nearly a year away from the British and Irish Lions tour to Australia for 2025, tickets are getting pretty close to selling out for the 3 test matches, including fully sold out for 2 of them. So I'm like, you know what, we're a year out, let's take the first guess, the first prediction as to who could be in Andy Farrell's squad. It could end up looking a little bit silly 1 year later because, well, players are going to get injured, players are going to potentially retire based on their experience level, but that is all good. We can look at things later on in this year and maybe in 2025 when we're closer to the tour. This is a prediction assuming Andy Farrell is going to select 37 players as Warren Gatland did for the last tour. And it's also assuming that Farrell is selecting the same amount of players per position that Gatland did for 2021. The prediction is going to be made up of 15 Irish players, 10 English players, 7 Scottish players, and, well, Wales aren't in the best spot right now, so I'm suspecting about only 5 Welsh players could go on this tour. We're going to start off from the back line, have a bit of an ad break between the backs and the forwards, and we'll go from there. So guys, what I think about the halves is that the back line is likely going to be built around the midfield because with Antoine Dupont playing 7s, there's no real standout 9 in the Six Nations aside from Jamison Gibson Park, who I picked in team of the tournament for this year. So I'm suspecting that Jamison Gibson Park and Ben White being probably the standout scrum halves for the competition in 2024. They're most likely to be the 9s selected, with Thomas Williams in there as a third choice for his experience. White is starting to build up a bit of experience for a guy that's 25 years old, while Jamison Gibson Park being the first choice 9 for the Irish. Well, he's got a pretty decent chance because he's one of the generals of Andy Farrell's game plan. Andy Farrell, to make things a bit smoother, will probably want to look for a bit of TWI out of his Irish players, and so that could fall on Gibson Park's shoulders. Anyway, as we move over to the fly halves, I believe that Owen Farrell is going to be the captain of this team. He is obsessed with winning. It will be his father's final chance to be the head coach of one of his son's teams, and of course he can bring over that IP playing in French club rugby. Farrell's off to Racing 92, so it can add a bit of difference. And in terms of the rest of the players I'm predicting to be in this squad, there's not really too much in terms of 100 cap veterans. Most Centurions who have reached 100 in Test rugby, well, they've retired. Less than 10 are currently active in Test rugby. Owen Farrell is England's greatest ever player. He's a much better player than Jonny Wilkinson ever was, and if anybody can be playing outside of a club competition and still make the Lions tour, it's Owen Farrell. He's familiar with having done it with Saracens in 2021 when they got relegated, and yet he was still one of the star performers during a few of their midweek tests in 2021. There's no better candidate out of those who I'm thinking are going to go on this tour, so Owen Farrell, I believe, is going to captain the Lions in 2025 for his final test match. As for the other 10s, Marcus Smith is probably going to bring a bit more of the control that Finn Russell potentially lacks. Marcus Smith, as well as his ability to play 15 and 10, can probably be a bit of a better bench option in terms of the likes of Russell, Sam Costello and others. Jack Crowley, being the Irish number 10, I think is probably going to go as the third choice, as at 24 years old right now, he'll be 25, reaching the prime of his career during the Lions tour, and with his very, very attractive flow to how he plays the game, he's going to give the viewers a lot of joy. As we move over to the midfield, well, Bundy Aki, Gary Ringrove's a very, very well established preset combination, and Sione Tuipolosho and Hugh Jones are essentially doing the same thing over at Scotland. I believe that Andy Farrell, the way that he likes to build his TWI, his team cohesion, is probably going to go for 2 set combinations who have played a lot of rugby together, as midfield is the real competitive place for this tour, and so with the amount of talent he's got to pick from, he's likely going to go for guys who know each other already. Aki and Ringrose bring together the perfect balance of power, defence and a kicking game. Both of them are very accurate kickers, both very, very fast players. Tuipolosho and Hugh Jones are both triple threats, with Jones probably the fastest of this lot despite being 30 years old. All of these players, aside from Tui Peloshu, have played nearly 50 tests. In the case of Jones, he'll have passed 50 by the time the tour happens, and even though Sione Tui Peloshu is a bit behind the rest in terms of experience, he has been named the vice-captain of Gregor Townsend's Scotland in the past, and so I think he could probably slot in pretty seamlessly. You could start either of these midfield combinations with Owen Farrell at 10 and the national 9 that these midfielders go with for set moves when they're crashing the ball up and later passing out to the wings. As we now go to the outside backs, I think Duhan van der Merwe is probably a pretty good shot to go on a second British and Irish Lions tour. As we can see, I've got the wee asterisk to show that he's been on a Lions tour before and started all 3 tests in 2021. He's still playing very good rugby, so is definitely a shout to go on the tour. James Lowe offers a bit of power similarly to van der Merwe, not to the same extreme extent, but Andy Farrell does quite like that left boot of James Lowe's, so with no other player in the Six Nations really offering that left boot, I think James Lowe could play his final test match on a Lions tour. Mac Hansen as well, it will be great to see him join Sione Tui Peloshu as they both head back to Australia, their country of birth, and play against the Wallabies and play some very good rugby. Hansen, having played fly half as a schoolboy, he'll be able to offer a bit of the extra distribution, which is going to be great for the team. Darcy Graham, an out-and-out finisher who is going to be absolutely lethal when he returns from injury. There's a reason I always talk about how amazing Darcy Graham is and how I'm proud to have Scottish ancestry. Hugo Keenan is almost definitely going to be the first choice fullback because his defence has come a long way since he first played Test rugby for Ireland. He remains very quick, and having played sevens in the past, he's very, very good at spotting the gaps and kicking for territory. Freddie Stewart as well, one of the best players of all time under the high ball. It would be quite the irony if they could bring him down 12 years after Folau really just wreaked havoc for the Wallabies against the Lions, though George North did finally end up carrying on his back. The back line's going to be very, very interesting, so with Freddie Stewart kind of coming in as that second choice 10, you know, you've got a guy who's played for England with Farrell in combination before, and it all just kind of makes sense as well, having the 2 Scottish wingers, having the 2 Irish wingers at the end of the chain as well, just to create a bit more of that familiarity, whereas of course Hugo Keenan, well, he's obviously going to start at 15. We're now going to take this wee ad break and we'll jump into the forward pack. Now guys, in terms of out and out leadership, Jamie George is probably one of the top guys for the captaincy, but the thing is, George isn't necessarily guaranteed to start. Well, he's gone on 2 Lions tours before and formed the greatest Lions front row of all time alongside Marco Vunipola and Tyke Furlong in 2017. Dan Sheehan is really getting to the peak of his powers right now, and it won't surprise me if by this point he's the best hooker in the world. Sheehan is starting to get a bit of experience as well, which is really good, as is Ronan Kelleher, who has just played a few more test caps there, because Kelleher is 1 year older. I think Kelleher and Sheehan really do just pack that 1-2 punch as the first choice hookers for the Irish, and with Rob Herring starting to get phased out of the team, I think it's pretty safe to say that these two are going to be wearing jersey number 2 and jersey number 16, with Jamie George potentially just an option to captain a few of the midweek teams as he did in 2021 when they toured to South Africa. Anyway, for the props, it's pretty obvious that you're going to take Pierre Schoeman and Xander Fagerson for the fact that they play so well together in combination for the Scots at loose head and tight head prop, whereas Andrew Porter and Tyke Furlong, being the Irish equivalents, are obviously going to start in jersey number 1 and number 3 if they are available for selection. Furlong's been on 2 Lions tours before, and the only reason Porter didn't go in 2021 was due to injury. The thing is though, there's no real standout player necessarily to be the third choice tight head prop, so Dylan Lewis of Wales I think could possibly sneak himself on the plane. For the sake of his experience, he's played over 50 tests this point and he's still yet to turn 30, so I think he could offer a fair bit of experience during the stages of midweek games. Similarly to Ellis Genge, who was captained England before and played 62 test matches, so Ellis Genge I think is probably going to go as that third choice loose head prop because, well, he's not necessarily as good at the scrum as the likes of Schoeman and of Porter, but the thing is he's an absolute battering ram with the ball in hand. He's going to get your highlight reels in the midweek to make you talk about the tour. He's just going to be perfect for the role. As we now move over to the locks, I think Joe McCarthy, if he can sort out his discipline, could potentially start for the British and Irish Lions in his very, very early 20s. He's still 22 right now. He's only played 10 Test caps, but he's looking quite promising, so if that can get fixed, I think he's going to start for the team. Ollie Chisholm as well, guys, he's really starting to come into his own to be kind of the replacement Courtney Laws. While Laws could potentially be available for the tour, I do think Chisholm will be a safer option because, well, I think it's going to be quite important for the tight five forwards to be at a similar mindset to each other, whereas with the fact that Owen Farrell is playing as a fly half, he can kind of use his experience from elsewhere to be an advantage in comparison. Chisholm is very, very good at playing lock, but he's also starting to transition to be that big lock who can also play six, so he could definitely be worth a try as starting at lock for the Lions in 2025. And Maro Itoje, the 87 Test veteran, he's played 6 Tests for the Lions before, and this would be his 3rd tour at just the age of 30, which is pretty unbelievable to think the guy is still 29 as we speak right now. Itoje was looking like he was falling off a couple years back, and especially during 2023, but now he's playing his best rugby since the Lions tour of 2021, so I think it's going to be worth it giving him a shot for a 3rd tour, of course. George Martin as well, need I say more, he could be a very, very good bench option for the same reasons as Chisholm, really. They can both cover lock and 6. I just think that Martin possibly gets in at lock rather than 6 because of his wingspan. Either way, very similar players who could work very well together, so we'll kind of see who dukes it out for jersey number 19. I do think Tyke Byrne could go on a 2nd tour as well because, well, Andy Farrell will want to keep that relationship building with the Irish. He will want to be continuing to prepare them for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. As well as that, though, Byrne is a very, very dynamic player, so could add a lot of momentum to the team during the midweek games. I think he'll be another one of the players who plays his final Test match during the Lions tour. Anyway, Will Rowlands, there's no real standout for a 6th lock. I'm not sure if Andy Farrell is going to go as far as taking 6 locks, but if he does take a 6th lock rather than a 7th loose forward, Will Rowlands will be very, very good for the experience because, well, he was one of the standouts of 2023's Rugby World Cup. He was the Welsh Player of the Year back in 2022, so why not have him in the list to kind of give Wales a bit of the balance? Anyway, we now go to the loose forwards. Australia's discipline is absolutely woeful and horrendous. In Super Rugby, the Force are averaging 14 penalties per match right now. The Wallabies conceded 18 penalties against Fiji in the 2023 World Cup, and they were also the most penalised side in the whole of the 2020s between 2020 and 23. I haven't updated the count because, well, the Six Nations has been and gone this year. The Rugby Championship hasn't started, but my point is about this discipline, Andy Farrell is more than likely going to try his best to exploit this, and if he wants to exploit it in such a way, a very good idea for doing so would be selecting 2 open side flankers with Caelan Doris also there as a potential captain for the tour. Anyway, Tom Curry has started at 6 numerous times for England before. He's already played 50 tests despite being 25 years old, and he's also been on the 2021 tour to South Africa, so Tom Curry, being a bit of the versatile guy, can probably give you a bit of that hand wearing the 6 jersey. I think it's pretty safe to say that Jack Morgan and Josh van der Flier are the best candidates to play open side flanker. You can pretty much take your pick with them because they've both got very good hands. I just think Jack Morgan's probably going to edge out Van der Flier because he's a younger guy who could get better, has a higher ceiling, whereas Van der Flier, being 30 right now, having played 62 tests, his best rugby could be behind him, but we'll find out in 1 year's time. Caelan Doris, as I said, he'll be at 50 tests by the time the tour starts, so is definitely in that mix for the captaincy, whereas Ben Earl, being able to play both open side and number 8, I think is probably going to be the guy who's going to come off the bench in jersey number 20, unless of course he gets better discipline and ends up overtaking Doris and starts at number 8. Either way, I do think Andy Farrell's going to go for a very, very jackal-heavy loose forward trio, and if that's the case, imagine Ben Earl coming off the bench, running up against tired legs. Ben Earl's a very, very fast player, a very explosive athlete. Some English fans have even compared him to Artie Savia, so I think Ben Earl pretty much suits the description for who you want coming off the bench perfectly. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Sorry about the inconsistent lighting, just had a bit of a storm and stuff recently, so yeah, let me know what you think of the possible tour squad down below in the comments and share your views on everything. Really appreciate you guys for viewing this once more. A big thanks to my patrons one more time as well. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for watching from Max.